endeavor. People work together. They joke. They have disagreements. But there is always the purpose of safety comes first. And I think when there is an accident, there is a sense of loss of a family member. And you can sense it in the tower. You can sense it from other air traffic controllers. And that sort of circle the wagons and are there to provide support and strength to get through whatever the incident is.
We were starting to move fast. We went well over flap speed. And it got up to a certain speed, and the flaps caused a turbulence over the tail so that we could no longer control the airplane. The nose simply dropped. And we were looking straight down at these birds that were starting to scatter because they could see us coming. They were smart, we weren't. Conroy put the thing into what they call beta, which flattened the propeller out. And the airplane just came to a stop in the air. And then as soon as the speed dropped, we were able to pull out of the thing. And he was shaking. He didn't say a word, and I didn't say a word. Then he turned to me and he says, "Something like that'll start your heart."
Dreamers. I wish I could have, or I wish I could. I think everyone would probably like to learn to fly, but to the average person, they think, oh, it's too hard. It's too expensive, that's for sure. Very expensive. But I always say that if it's something you really, really want, you'll find a way. I don't know. There's something about flying by yourself that, I don't know, it's a freedom that you don't have any other time. I loved looking at clouds and being close to them and looking down at things and seeing all the beautiful things that are there. It gives you a totally different perspective of the world.
starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, I'd like to convene the Single Family Design Board for August 31st, 2020. Welcome. Could we have roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I will take roll call. We have Chair Miller,
Here.
Board Member Farrell,
Here.
Board Member Motisha,
Here.
Board Member Richards,
Here.
Board Member Sweeney,
Fred, did you say here?
Yes, I did. Here.
thank you. Board Member Ziegler,
Here.
and Board Member James is absent. We have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move into any general business, any public comments. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for our public discussion. Do we have anyone that would like to say anything or have any public comment?
And at this time, we would like to invite any members of the public who are in attendance. If you'd like to speak on any item that is not on the agenda, please do so, or please raise your hand by clicking the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel as shown on screen. Once we call on you, you will have 2 minutes to speak. And as a reminder, this is on items that are not on today's agenda. I do see a Thomas Fogel raising his hand, so I will unmute you, Mr. Fogel. And once you are unmuted and you start speaking, your 2-minute timer starts.
And part of my interruption before Mr. Fogel unmutes himself, could I just ask all the board members to please mute themselves so we don't pick up any audio background noise? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fogel, it looks like your microphone is green, so whenever you start speaking, your 2-minute timer will begin. And if you do not wish to speak at this time, please just let us know.
Hello, I'm not working.
It's Mr. Fogel, it sounds like if you could turn your volume up, we can hear you in the just ever so faintly.
I can't tell if I'm working through my computer or through my phone. Which one would be better for this?
So I think it's through your computer, but I don't know where your audio is picking up. I can barely hear you. I don't know if you can get closer. Try it again, please.
Can you hear me now?
I would like the board members to confirm if you can hear Mr. Fogel. Yes, please,
Okay.
if you could speak up as loud as you can. I know that's obnoxious and I'm sorry about that.
As loud as I can.
This is great. We can hear you. So you
Very
have
good.
2 minutes whenever you're ready.
All right. I submitted a letter to you with photographs regarding a problem with the roof on the construction at 945 Arbolado. You may recall that this item came up a year or so ago, and in fact, a number of you came out to do a site visit. And at that time, there was quite a bit of discussion regarding the metal seam roof and whether or not that would be in keeping with the neighborhood, and also whether that might pose some issues with reflection. It turns out that it has created a sizable problem in that certain times of the afternoon, with the sunlight shining on that portion of the roof, we literally can't be outside because it's blinding, and it reflects, in fact, into our home and into our kitchen and into our bedroom. I submitted several photographs to you, and at this point, I know that you had a subcommittee on the metal seam roofs as well. I'm just wondering if there's any recourse at this point. My understanding is that the contractor has spoken with the homeowner, and his attitude is, you approved it, and now we have to live with it. Unfortunately, this is something that is very difficult for us to live with, and I'd like to know if we can revisit this and possibly re-vote on this. I don't know what the prerogative of this SFDB is in terms of mandating a change, but I would certainly appreciate if you could revisit this situation, because frankly, short of growing or planting trees, I don't know how we're going to live with this. Certain times of the year, I imagine it's even going to be worse, and it may reflect down into the city as well. I haven't driven down into the city to see it, but the size of this roof, the deck over the roof, and the reflection is just intolerable, and it's hard to live with. So obviously, we'd like some recourse if possible.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fogel. Mr. Chair, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Ted, if there's something you have to have a comment about that, I'd also like to hear from Mr. Sweeney regarding this as well. I invite you.
We do have, yes, we do have three total items of written correspondence to acknowledge as well.
Okay.
So if I may go ahead and acknowledge those. One item is from Mr. Fred Sweeney, the second is from Thomas Fogel, and the third was from Jens Sorensen that was forwarded from the consent meeting this morning regarding 1686 Las Canoas.
Thank you. So Fred, unmute yourself.
Mr. Chair, and if Irma is watching or Ted can confirm some of these things, I think there's one additional letter that should be brought into the public forum, in as much as that was sent to all of us as board members, and that was your letter, Mr. Chair, regarding the Novak report.
Yes.
So I would suggest that that be entered into the record under public comment, not on the agenda for today.
Okay.
I assume that all the board members have seen the letter, but I think officially the appropriate way to do that is to have the letter submitted under public comment. With regards to my letter, I'm now on the other side of the table, so to speak. I just wanted you to see that letter. I spoke as an individual board member to the committee. I would hope that staff will continue to advise us when that committee meets, so that if we as a board or individuals want to speak to that committee, we may do so. One of the challenges is it's not a regularly scheduled meeting. And so it'll just pop up when the three members of the council and support staff can meet. So I would request that Mary or Ted, whomever is responsible, to at least alert us when those meetings are. So if we choose to attend, we can. The other thing about the letter is obviously it's covering a lot of subjects about the Single Family Design Board. And Ted or Irma, as I understand it, it takes two of us to request an item to come to an agenda for discussion. And obviously we can't discuss this letter today, but is that the case?
Mr. Sweeney, I'm actually not familiar with such a rule that requires two board members to bring an item before.
I know that's the stipulation for the city council. It requires two council people to bring an item for discussion, to put it on the agenda for discussion. So if you could get that clarified and let us know what that procedure is, so that if any one of us wants to bring this item and put it on an agenda for discussion, we can do so. And I sense some, just looking at body language, that there is probably some favor to do that at some point. With regards to the letter, Brian, that was, and the individual that just spoke, again, we're not allowed to discuss that today because it's not an agendized item, but I would like staff to report back to us as to whether or not we can even discuss this item, even if it's agendized, or whether this is a completed project that we have no purview over, we have no enforcement authority over. We're not allowed to go back and rethink, as I understand it, under Robert's Rules of Order. And I'm sure the city attorney's office can verify, we're not, as I understand, we're not allowed to re-vote on anything. So if we could get some clarification certainly for us and certainly for the public individual, because they're going to want to know whether or not they have any recourse other than just talking with us. It would also be a question if we're able to send copies of this letter to City Council. As you know, there was a previous project appeal to City Council for a standing seam metal roof, and the council overrode our decision and allowed the metal roof to remain. So I'd like some clarification from staff as to whether or not these letters can be, because they're public documents now, can be forwarded to City Council or certainly to our council liaison, Megan Harmon. And the same goes for the letter from Mr. Sorensen. My understanding is that we have no authority for enforcement. We're not allowed to rediscuss this project. It's already been approved, but again, same as the Arbolado address road, I'd like some clarification from staff as to whether we will be allowed to put this on an item for discussion or whether it's over and we're to remain silent. So if we could get clarification at either today or some future meeting on those, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Yes, Jan, please.
Yes, question. Yeah. So, Fred, what was the name of that committee? Was that the land use committee?
Hold on.
I listened.
Yeah, it's the Land Development Oversight Committee.
Land Development.
Apparently, from the last meeting I attended, they've indicated they will be meeting monthly until November. They're going to take November and December off, and then they will meet again in January, etc. The discussion is SFDB, according to our interim community development director. That discussion will probably not occur until next year. But again, clarification from staff and noticing would be most helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? I would just like to follow up a little quickly, and I thank you, Mr. Sweeney, for for going over that. Yes, my letter was sent, and I'd like to put that in the record. And the thing I want to underline is that our design review boards are an opportunity for the community to come and speak. And I think that's kind of a critical component. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about our design review boards is the fact that it does allow community to come and speak. And so we actually get feedback. And in particular, as this metal roof has been rather a touchy subject, it's good to hear community feedback, and we actually get to hear and see the results of the decisions we make. And I think that's kind of critical. So with that being said, I believe I will close public comment. I don't know if we have anything else to address, and we'll go to approval of the minutes. Tim, are we ready to go on?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to confirm that there's no additional correspondence to acknowledge.
Okay, thank you. So let's go on to approving the minutes for the Single Family Design Board for August 17, 2020. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Let's go through the items. Item 1, 155 Cedar Lane. Please review the minutes. Motion. Item number 2, 3240 Campanile Drive. Item number 3, 102 Santa Rosa Place. Item number 4, 506 Yankee Farm Road. Hearing no changes or comments, may I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. This is Mary. I will take the roll call vote. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Board Member Motisha? Thank you. Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's moving on to the consent calendar for August 24th. May I have a motion to approval?
I move to approve the consent
And I
agenda.
And I second it.
Okay, thank you. Ted, could you please go through the minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chair. For August 24th on consent, the first item was 1686 Las Canoas Road, and the motion was for project design approval with comments. Item B was 1177 Los Alturas Road. The motion was for final approval as submitted. And item C, 35 Leslie Drive, final approval as submitted. And was there one more, or were there just three? Just three items.
And who reviewed those, Ted?
The reviewers in attendance were Board Member Sweeney and Board Member James.
And who else? Sorry.
Sweeney and James reviewed those projects.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, moving on to today, August 31st.
Whoops, Mr. Chair, we need a vote, don't we?
Yeah,
Sorry.
roll
Yep.
call. Thank you, Fred.
Oh,
Roll call.
we need a vote and did we get a second and a first?
Yes, we did,
We did,
right?
okay, thank you.
All right, we have Chair Miller,
Yes,
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
thank you. For August 31st, may I have a motion for approval?
I
think
move
that
to
motion-
approve.
Beat you to it, Jen.
Okay, so Jan's made the motion, right?
Okay. I seconded it. Joe seconds it.
Okay, thank you. Ted, could you please go through the items?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The first item was 1686 Las Canoas Road, and the motion was final approval as submitted. Item B was 1560 La Vista del Oceano Drive, and the motion was for project design approval and final approval with comments. Item C, 1822 Garden Street, and the motion was for project design approval and final approval with comments. And then item D was 743 Litchfield Lane, and the motion was for final approval as submitted.
All right, thank you. And who reviewed those, please? Ted?
The consent reviewers for August 31st were Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Richards.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. We have Chair Miller,
Yes,
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler. Board Member Ziegler,
Yes.
thank you. Motion passes.
all right, thank you. Moving on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals. Do we have any of those?
Mr. Chair, staff does not have any item or announcements for item D at this meeting.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to item E, subcommittee reports. I do not believe we have any subcommittee reports. Ellen, you came up. Is there something you need to say?
I just wanted to remind everyone, just for the preservation of audio, if I know it's a lot to turn your mics on and off, but I think it'll make it easier to hear and follow along the meeting. Thank you.
This technology is so much fun. Okay, so let's moving on to the first item is 117 Calle Bello. Do we have a representative of this project?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
we do have the applicant in the queue here.
Okay.
Pardon me while I send him an unmute request here.
So I'm gonna disappear and mute myself.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, and Mr. Pardon Khan, there you are. Great.
Oh, hello.
Mr. Chair, should we, since this is the first item, the first time this project is being reviewed, should we be reviewing or reading the project description into the record?
Yes. Thank you very much, Ted. Traditionally, we would have the vice chair doing that, but she is not in attendance. So I will read it in for the record. The proposal, it's a new item, a concept review. Proposal to remove the existing Spanish tile roof and install a new 234 gauge steel galvalume standing seam metal roof on the dark bronze in the dark bronze color. Project site is located on a 79,820 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District with an average slope of 25%. No final appealable action will be taken at this hearing. Project requires neighborhood preservation and hillside design and slope lot findings. So if you could please present your project, thank you.
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I'm sorry, this is my first time doing this. I thought this had already been reviewed by you. Though, if you look at the roof report that is being shown there, it actually shows you all the, the roofing area and the surrounding. I spoke with Ted a few days ago. He said you guys went through this, or somebody went through, and it seems to be okay. It seems that you guys don't need any, like a real blueprint. I added today, he asked me to add some of the, like a plan, like more like a map showing other houses around that will have a metal roof. And I did it this morning. I sent, it's just a picture of a PNG, but I also added a link that if I can take you to actual Google Map where I put the actual addresses and the pictures of the metal roofs that are around the house. There's two houses that can be seen from the back patio. They both have, big metal roofs. That's one of them. But yeah, those are the two of those. And also in the map that I have in my map, the link that I put there, you can actually see there's two pictures, one's of the top and also the front side. And also I added, so the reason we were hired by Mr. Swanson is because he saw a house that we did in Hope Ranch, and it has the same color. It's a dark bronze color. It's pretty much the same panel. So if you look at that picture, you're going to be able to see, that this is not a very reflective color. And the other thing, I think the house is right up on a hill. There's no other houses on top. So I don't think there will be any problem with reflection or anything like that.
And Andres, just to supplement that, we have all of your submittal items on a file here. So if there's any one of them that you would like to specifically reference, please just say so, and we can go to it. I believe Timmy had the color board or the color palette rather up a minute ago that has the dark bronze color on it for your reference as well.
Sure, I'd like to actually know what are your main concerns to see if I can answer your questions. I believe it's normally the reflection that, it can cause, to other neighbors. If there's anything else, because it seems to me this is a pretty standard project.
And yes, Andres, if you would like to go to, allow the board to ask you questions, then we can conclude the presentation, your presentation, and then move on to public comment, and then we will have an opportunity for questions from the board. If that concludes your presentation, then we can move on and have a discussion.
Okay, yes.
Okay. So at this time, we can open it up to public comment. And I can acknowledge that we did not receive any written public comment for this item. If you are attending this meeting and you would like to give verbal public comment about this project, please click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak once we call on you. Currently, I don't see anybody in the audience with their hands raised, so we can move on to questions from the board. Actually, it looks like we do have one person, Richard St. Clair. And Mr. St. Clair, I'm going to unmute you, and the 2-minute timer will start when you begin to speak. And it looks like, I apologize, we're having audio issues here, it seems like.
Part of my interruption, it looks like Mr. St. Clair, you have to unmute yourself before, so there you go. Now it looks like you're unmuted and you should be able to speak whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I live at 123 Calle, Bello, which is directly beneath this project. So in the photographs that have been submitted in conjunction with this plan, you don't really see my view. My only concern is that that one of reflection, and also once solar reflectors or captures are put on there, solar panels, that it's just going to have kind of an industrial look, particularly given the metal nature of the roof. So those are my concerns. Something that, from my home, every time I go to my front door, I see that roof. There you have it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. St. Clair.
I must say I have no familiarity with metal roofs and things like that, or the solar panel reflection. These are issues I don't really know anything about. It's just a concern that this should be raised, I suspect, at least taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. St. Clair. If there's anybody else attending who would like to speak, please raise your hand by clicking the raise hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak once we call on you. I do not see anybody else who wishes to speak about this item, so we can move on to questions from the board.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to go down the list of anyone who has questions. So the first one on the list is Board Member Farrell. Do you have any questions?
I would like to see which color on the color board he is proposing, because there's no chip that's circled. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, that was my only question.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. No, I do not. I'll stay there for comments. Thank you.
Board Member Richards, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Sweeney, any questions, please?
Yes, mine are to staff. I'm looking at the City of Santa Barbara Design Review Applicant Submittal Checklist. And on that checklist, it requires not only photographs and a scope of work description, it requires a site plan and any plans required for us to look at. Are those no longer required for this kind of application?
Mr. Sweeney, I can answer that question. For a re-roof, those items, well, all the items that are required in the full design review checklist are not required. So usually it's just a sample of the roofing material, the colors, a diagram showing the roof, structure, and that's about it. And this is, I believe, consistent with how other standing seam roofs have been reviewed at SFDB. And you may certainly request additional information if that would help.
So no site plans are required, correct?
Correct. Staff does not require a site plan at submittal for a re-roof.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have is, it appears, having familiarized myself with this site, is to check the bar city location. It indicates that Calle Bello is within the city of Santa Barbara. That's why this project is here. There is a road right above that, up Barker Pass, comes off of Barker Pass, also a dead-end cul-de-sac, Calle Hermosa, and then above that, another street called Calle Elegante that is a one-way street off of Barker Pass. Do you know, Ted, or does anyone on staff know that it appears that all of those homes on those three roads may have been built at about the same time? They're all Mediterranean style, and all of them have clay tile roofs. Do you know if that's the case? Do we know that those were built as a single development at some point in the history of that neighborhood?
Mr. Sweeney's, the city records that we have on file show that the property is part of the Montecito Vista tract. This structure was constructed in 1986. I did request information from the applicant about whether the property is located as part of a homeowners association, and the applicant said that it's not, if that is the concern here.
Okay, no, I was trying to get a clear picture of when all of these homes were built, because they all look like they were built around the same period and all of the same style, particularly all of the roof components on that entire hillside, a good length down Barker Pass Road and up Barker Pass Road. But I also noticed the distinction of where the city and the county line are. So that's why I was questioning. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions, please?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, I myself have no questions either. So I'm going to go back to the board and go down the list for comments. So we're going to go, I'm going to read the list, please. So Board Member Farrell, do you have any comments, please?
I do. So this little street up here, this little cul-de-sac, it is kind of its own little neighborhood. And all of the homes there, like Mr. Sweeney was saying, have a similar look and style to them. And there is not another standing seam metal roof on that street. And so I feel like I personally will have a hard time supporting a standing seam metal roof on this street, because what we have there are Spanish Mediterranean with red tile roofs. And then there is also one more of a ranch style home with a slate tile roof. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Jan. Board Member Motisha, comments?
I have more of a statement and a question and a comment all together. Jan, I kind of agree with you, but I'm an architect. I'm a licensed architect, and I believe in architecture changing. And in the past, we have kind of took the stance on our board that for two reasons. One, either it reflected and it was not appropriate for the house, or it didn't fit the neighborhood. And most of the things we've looked at before have been very obvious and very, they stood out. Everybody saw them. I'm an architect and I'm in for change, and change is change. The client has done their neighborhood, what do we call, neighborhood, talk to everybody in the neighborhood, and it's obvious nobody is coming forward to object to changing this tile roof to a metal standing seam roof.
No, that's not accurate.
Okay.
Mr. Sinclair.
That's not accurate.
Hold on, back up. Then there are some objections. If there are some objections.
Mr. Chair, I would like Mr. Matisha to define his question and save his comments for the comment period, please.
Okay.
We're in comments.
Are we in comments?
Yes, we are in comments.
That is correct. We are in
Sorry.
comments.
Sorry.
That's all right, Fred. I apologize. I excuse you.
Sorry, Joe.
That's okay. I would like to make sure that the neighborhood is aware of that one house in probably 10 or 15 houses that were built in a Spanish style with tile roofs is now going to could become a metal standing seam roof, which is changing the style and the architecture of that neighborhood, which in the past is what we have kind of been a negative point of view for. And
Mr. Motisha, may I make a suggestion that you just say what you feel about your impressions and whether it's an appropriate style or not? And, just say how you feel about the roof and whether you think it's appropriate or not.
yes, I think it's appropriate.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. Board Member Richards, do you have any comments, please?
Maybe the person that made the comments being concerned about the roof, do you know where their home is relative to this proposed home? I was just looking at it in Google Earth trying to make sense of where somebody could actually see it. Are they downhill from?
They are down.
Yes, Mr. Richards, if I can help clarify that. The public commenter did not specify the address where he lives. However, he did say he's below the subject property down the hill.
Okay. Well, that is the only home from looking at it on Google Earth that I could make an estimate that they would be able to see it. So, I don't know. This is a complicated one, given the comment we just got previous from somebody else having a problem with metal roofs. I don't object to the metal roof on the home, but as though there's a concern about glare coming off from the neighbor, maybe it's smart for the applicant to see if there's another option. So that's where I'm at with it now. I guess I'll let other people weigh in on it too. I don't know if I have note at this point.
Board Member Sweeney, do you have comments, please?
Yes, I do. The applicant showed us two houses on Cedar Lane, which we have reviewed and approved for standing seam metal roofs. That's not in this neighborhood. Those areas are not visible. Those two homes that are shown on the screen right now, they're in the county of Santa Barbara. They're not subject to our review nor the neighborhood compatibility findings, which we're supposed to be looking at. They're in the county of Santa Barbara, and so I'm going to ignore them. Quite frankly, if I were reviewing them, I would have looked at this project way differently, but I didn't, and it's in county. The other thing, if you've been to the site, you'll see that the speaker that spoke earlier about his concern about the reflectivity is in the house directly below the road. There's also another house directly on that little spring road that you go up to get to this house. There are several homes across the canyon that are in the city that see this site, etc. I'm going to remind the board that one of our jobs is to look at neighborhood compatibility as defined in chapter 22.69 of the municipal code. And it says the purpose. A single-family design board is hereby created and established by the city to promote the general public welfare, protect and preserve the city's natural and historical charm, and enhance the city's aesthetic appeal and beauty. The goal of the single-family design board shall be to ensure that single-unit residential projects are compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in size and design. The single-family design board is also charged with the task of protecting public visual resources and promoting the ecological sustainability of the city built environment through the design review process. That's 22.690110 or 010, paragraph A. So, to my fellow board members, we have an obligation here to preserve this neighborhood. And if you bother to go look at the site or look at Google Earth, you'll see that all these homes were built at the same time or close to the same time. That's why I was asking the question earlier. They're all Mediterranean style. They all have clay tile roofs, with maybe the exception of one house lower down. This is why we sit as a board. We're supposed to here be making houses compatible with the neighborhood. In no way does the same metal roof show compatibility with this neighborhood, irregardless of the reflectivity issue. And the reflectivity issue is, it seems to me that nobody is paying attention to our zoning code where it says shining surfaces are not allowed in the city of Santa Barbara. So I just don't clearly understand. As an architect, Joe, I understand you like to promote the idea that architects do in fact present alternative design solutions, but that's not our job here. Our job here is to find neighborhood compatibility. So I'm sorry, but this is inappropriate. And if the applicant chooses to appeal our decision and take to the city council, then the city council can decide whether or not the single family design board is in the business of looking at compatibility.
Fred, I agree with you 100%.
Please stop, Joe. Please, I would refrain from your comments, please. You've had your say, so please. This is not a discussion. I do not want to debate about this. Please.
Shut up, but now I can't say anything, huh?
Right. You're absolutely right. And because it's my turn to talk. Okay. Well, it's not. Forgive me. So I want Board Member Ziegler to speak. Do you have something to say, Mr. Ziegler?
Okay, am I unmuted? Okay. I would agree with Joe that I think change is really a good thing to have happening in a neighborhood. And people bought these homes looking all alike at the same time, and now we're evoking change. And I think the change is a good one. And therefore, I think it makes sense to go ahead with it. We have a lot of people who want metal seam roofs, and I think it's not appropriate for us to hold them back if that's what they want. So I would vote for it.
All right, thank you. So it's my turn to talk. So first off, let me say, I'm not a licensed architect, so what I'm going to say is just from my aesthetic experience and my history of working in the city. So, there are other cities in this county and in the country that don't have design review boards. I grew up in Santa Maria. I currently live in Lompoc. And then there's Oxnard. None of these people have design review boards. And they have architecture that evolves to the latest whims or whatever. And there's a certain quality, and there's a certain mystique, and there's a certain majesty and heritage to this town that is important. And if we don't support that, then we're losing the basic character of this community. These design boards were created, and if you study the history of them with Pearl Chase, the Spanish colonial Mediterranean look was the thing that was the theme of this town. There are a lot of architects and designers that fight that. They resist it. They go on and on. It's like, well, if you don't like that, don't build here. Go to Oxnard, go to Santa Maria, go to Lompoc. But Santa Barbara has a special quality to it. And I think Fred is absolutely right that as a design board, it is our job, because we are in the charter of the city, to do exactly what he said out of that book. That is the uniqueness of this board, and it is unusual. And I know a lot of architects go to years of college and they're trained to think that architecture is a certain way, and then they come to Santa Barbara and it's like, oh, nope, we're going to do it this way, which is not what I was taught in the college. Well, guess what? That's the rules of the game here, and that's what I feel as a chair of this design board, because I have studied the history of this design board. I know the history of what's going on. I've worked with architects in this town. I've had very lucky opportunities to, very gifted people who really understands the legacy and the quality. So with that being said, because you guys get me all, take a deep breath. My comments is because of the already established neighborhood, because of the architectural integrity of this area, I cannot support a standing metal seam roof in this particular already established neighborhood. So that's my comment.
Deep breath, Brian.
Well, I know I'm better now.
Now that we've heard your comments,
yeah,
I agree with Fred, but I also am an architect and agree with architecture. But that doesn't mean that I have committed my vote right now yet. I'm willing to listen to everybody on the board and what their comments are, and I just listened to you.
Yeah.
But you didn't listen to me, and I didn't give my finished comments, and I don't think I need to now, because we have gone through our comments, and I think we are waiting for a go ahead. I'm finished.
All right. Thank you. I don't want to say any more about this. I don't, the client has come before us, and I just feel that because of the already established neighborhood, I feel that this standing metal seam roof in this particular neighborhood is inappropriate, and that's all I have to say about it. So with that being said, they're here for no final appealable action is written, so all they're here is for comments. So Ted, I have a concern about this because I know this city council actually, I think, and Fred backed me up on this, that they basically said we can't even comment about this. So I'm not sure what our purview is.
Mr. Chair, it is within the SFDB's purview to comment on the aesthetics and the design and the neighborhood compatibility of the project. And, I think the issue at hand is that the applicant, I'm sort of speaking on behalf of the applicant because I had a conversation with him last week. The property owner would like a new roof. So if a standing seam metal roof is not the appropriate choice, then recommend a more appropriate choice for the neighborhood.
All right, thank you, Ted. Thank you for that clarification.
Brian, may I ask a question?
Sure.
If this was, I'm just going to throw this out, and maybe some few of you will comment on it. If this was a new house, would we allow them to put a new house on a vacant lot right in this same area, on the same street, on a vacant lot? Would we allow them to put a standing seam through our guidelines? Would that allow us to give them the permission to put a standing seam roof, metal roof on their house? Or would they have to adhere to the neighborhood compatibility?
So I want to give the floor to Mr. Sweeney, the other licensed architect, to respond to that question.
No, I would not support a new house with a standing seam roof on this site in this neighborhood. Again, we're supposed to be following the rules of the ordinance which established this board, and I read to you the paragraph that requires us to find neighborhood compatibility. Now, unfortunately, neighborhood compatibility is not defined in any of the zoning code. That is a subjective decision by not only our review board, but the other two review boards, the HLC and the Architectural Board of Review. There is nothing, and I've said this several times, and I've asked staff several times to see if they can show me where neighborhood compatibility is defined. and it's not. It's a subjective decision by this board, and it's also a subjective decision by this board to determine where the neighborhood is, because we have no guidelines to define the neighborhood. HLC does sort of, ABR doesn't, we don't. And so both of those decisions are subjective. So I would never support in this particular neighborhood, this particular area, anything other than a Mediterranean style home with a clay tile roof, period. That's neighborhood compatibility in this particular case. As I pointed out, we approved standing seam metals roof just down Barker Pass Road on Cedar Lane, as Cedar Lane intersects near APS. So it's not like I'm proposing that we change our position on standing seam metals roofs. In this case, it's not compatible with the neighborhood, nor is a change in the architecture. Irregardless of property rights and et cetera, that's not our, as I look at, not our decision. Now, if council wants to overturn our decision, fine. That's what the city council is there for. And the way it's set up now, unlike other cities where appeals go to the planning commission, our appeals go directly to the city council. So one of the questions I have for Ted, if today, because this takes no appealable decision and you're needing to help the client make a decision, if we made a motion that basically says we cannot support a standing seam metal roof, please come back to us with a clay tile roof, that I assume would then, and the client says, no, I don't want to do that, I want a standing seam roof, then I assume the process is he would have to return in 2 weeks with a request for a formal project design approval on a standing seam roof. And at that point, if the board is still in the same inclination, we would deny it. That denial is then subject to a 10-day appeal period to go before the city council. And those city council appeal probably will be scheduled for sometime October or later. Is that a fair assessment of what a process might look like today?
Mr. Sweeney and Chair Miller, yes, that is a correct assessment. I will say that the application completeness review process may take longer than 2 weeks, though. So there may not be enough time to continue this item only 2 weeks.
But again, the process is exactly that, whether it's 2 weeks or it's 4 weeks from now. If the board has to take an action in order for the applicant to have the opportunity to appeal our decision, correct?
Correct. The applicant would have to submit an application for project design approval. The project would come back before the board. And if the proposal is still the standing seam metal roof and the board denies the project, then yes, the applicant could appeal it.
Okay, and then another question for any of the public that might be listening. So the time it appears, every time it appears at our board, that's a public meeting and can accept public comment to this item. If it's appealed to the city council, that is also a public meeting and is acceptable to public appeal. But my question is, given the nature of this application where it's only concerning a roof, would the appeal in front of the city council become a de novo hearing?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last portion of that sentence? It cut off a little bit for me.
If this appeal goes to city council for a roof subject only, does that become a de novo hearing?
The way I understand the city process is that it would be a de novo hearing for city council.
Just so the public understands, a de novo hearing puts any and all subjects on the agenda for consideration by the council. So if the public has some other concerns about this property owner for whatever reason, color of house or gate or whatever, all of those under de novo could be brought to the attention of the council, correct? That's what de novo means.
Mr. Sweeney, I believe you are correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Appreciate that. Good conversation. So we need to entertain a motion. Who would like to make a motion? And these are comments only.
Okay, well, I'd like to make a motion that we cannot support a standing seam metal roof in this neighborhood. I'm defining the neighborhood as Barker Pass and Calle Bello roads. And we do not support a standing seam metal roof in this neighborhood because it is not compatible with the neighborhood and it would not follow good neighbor guidelines.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that. If the maker of the motion adds to language to her motion that says the neighborhood is defined as Calle Bello to San Marcos Pass to the city limits line.
I will amend my motion to say that this neighborhood is Calle Bello, Barker Pass, and to the city limit lines.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
No.
All right, motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Whew, okay. Going on to the next item. Item number 2. Let's see. We're pretty much on time, which is great. 301 Mohawk Road. Do we have a representative? Let's see, I'll read into the record. Proposal to demolish an existing 1,280 square foot, one-story single-family residence with a detached 424 square foot, one-car garage and 57 square foot detached shed. The project proposes to construct a two-story dwelling with a 1,275 square foot ground floor, 801 square foot second floor, 580 square foot basement, and a 400 square foot attached two-car garage. Other site improvements include a 288 square foot balcony, 140 square foot covered patio area, and outdoor pool. The proposal total of 2,476 square foot of development, of which the basement is excluded from a floor to lot area ratio on a 6,852 square foot lot in the non-appealable jurisdiction of this coastal zone, is 85% of the maximum floor allowed FAR. Project design approval is requested. An administrative exception is requested to allow a 14-foot hedge to be located in the interior setback. Project requires neighborhood preservation findings. Project last was reviewed on March 2nd, 2020. Do we have a representative for this project?
Chair Miller, yes, I believe we do. They're still in attendance, so we should make them panelists. Okay, Mr. Nixto, I just made you a panelist. And staff has brief comments on this item as well. The administrative exception, while it's not in the board's purview to grant the administrative exception, it's a staff approval. Staff does request the board's comments on the administrative exception, and specifically the two items that staff would like comments on are the site wall along Carlton Way and the hedge in the interior setback as well on the western side of the property.
Mr. Hamilton or
Yes.
Mr. Miller, can we, do we have comments from the last time we saw this? Can we have those first, please?
Oh, yes, thank
I
you
believe
very
we do,
much.
yes.
Yes, so yeah, the motion to continue indefinitely full board with these comments. The landscape plan provide privacy. It helps screen the project. Number 2, the applicant has addressed the board's concerns from the last meeting. Number 3, the color palette is acceptable. Number 4, the project is ready for project design approval at the next meeting. Action was taken by Farrell, seconded by Sweeney. The motion was carried unanimously. So Mr. Nixo, if you could please present your project.
Great. Thank you very much. Real quick, as Brian just, or excuse me, Chair Member Miller just read into the record, we had very positive comments last time, and I believe we're ready for project design approval. Of course, that was early March, and we all know we lost a little momentum in later March. So we're back now. We're trying to continue forward. I'd like to take a quick look, if I could have staff show the supplemental neighborhood guideline. And this was shown at the last meeting, but just for your reference, we took a look both along Mohawk and in the greater kind of Mesa area between Cliff and the Bluff and Meigs and over westwards. And we are proposing a little bit more of a contemporary house, and we did find a few examples of contemporary houses in that neighborhood. In particular, the one that kind of stands out with the flat roof, the flat white roof, kind of on the biggest middle image here. I don't know if anyone can see my cursor, if I'm allowed but the one on the bottom right here that we're looking at now is just 2 houses over on Carlton and then flipped backwards. You can see it kind of at the top of your screen right there by the 13. So we felt that there's flat roofs in this neighborhood. The 2 houses directly to the east have that, and we felt it was an appropriate style. So this is available for viewing. We also, when we were meeting in person, had our lovely 3D model. So if you have any, like me to kind of show that around, we have to do that as well. But let's take a look at the plans, and we can kind of show some of the updates or minor refinements that we've made. We have been working with a civil engineer. It's quite a flat lot, but we do have some garden walls in the vicinity of 18 inches in the rear to help transition as the lot slowly slopes down. We've coordinated with our landscape designer, Jessica Carlin. She'll be available to talk through the landscape plans here as we go. We've got the water features. We've got a pool off to the west, and we do have kind of a floating pad entryway by the front door, and then also a dry creek feature kind of in between those two as well. A couple items to note: we have gone through the city's completeness review and talked to Transportation Department, Public Works Department about the moving of the curb cut, and as well as the Creeks Department about our stormwater. And so many of the notes and clarifications we've added have been in response to those. One in particular, the Street Tree Committee, as we are removing a Metro Sederos for the new driveway, which is off to the east there now on Mohawk Road. There's a big X through it there. As we're removing that Metro Sederos, they asked us to plant another Metro Sederos within the right-of-way. So just north above the driveway, we've shown that proposal as well. We are, let's see, we're working with our pool consultant on ensuring that our equipment meets the noise level. We've also talked to the neighbor to the north, Luis, which is part of the reason why the CMU wall extends past the pool equipment. It's for an additional level of sound protection. I don't know if you can see that there. And you may recall part of the reason we had even proposed the screening and these walls to the west and even in the front yard to the south was in response to some comments made by this board at one of our first conceptual meetings, and privacy concerns that we have a tough corner lot with our backyard essentially off to the west and kind of somewhat open to the front. And so those 6-foot walls on the front were a neighbor suggestion that we were happy to comply with to reduce sound going to a neighbor across the street to the southwest. And also the screening to the west and north, the 14-foot hedges. We've also talked to both those neighbors, again, as I mentioned, and in an effort to provide some privacy, but still comply with the constraints on this very tight lot. So let's see if we can move to the floor plan, the next page 2. Very similar to the plan that we came in that everybody has seen before. We made some minor tweaks to the footprint of the laundry area, which is near the back. And there's a cantilever on the back that we can see in better in elevation. And one other thing I did want to point out, in our previous version in the living room, we had a fixed screen with a little glass corner. We've now transitioned that to be actually one fixed screen and then a sliding screen at the corner. So where the cursor is on the right there, that panel is fixed, and off to the left, that panel would slide. So in any case, it would just be the corner that would be open. And then on the transom or clear story above that, the wood screening goes all the way around, wraps the corner, even facing west, to reduce a little bit of that that exposure. Let's see if we let's take a look at the elevations. The next sheet, page 3. You can see on the south elevation, number 1, we're showing the approximate 14-foot screening height with the wall, the sound wall as well. In there, we've indicated that 1 is the sliding screen. You can see kind of the fixed wood screen there and the sliding wood screen off to the left. But above in the clear story, those are all fixed up there. We have a rain chain that will connect to Jessica's Dry Creek, and I'll let her explain a little bit more about that. Let's see if we can zoom out and take a look at the north elevation. On the left there, previously, the wood massing had come all the way down to the ground, and we were concerned that it was just one kind of flat, tall wall. And so to break that up a little bit, we simply made a cantilever that also allowed us a place to put some of the electrical panels and gas meters and hide that away under there, HVAC equipment, etc. So I believe we can move on to the building sections, which is next sheet here. These show kind of our what we still believe to be modest heights, mostly at an 8-foot height, especially against the north, where we're against the neighbor. In the upper rooms, let's see. If I'm looking at section C at the bottom right there, our bathroom has a little bit lower. The way this section is cut, the solar access line, it looks fine here, but it kind of comes at it at an angle. So at the very, the most direct point, that's what we needed to do. Anyone has questions on sections or heights? These are what we reviewed last time. We just have a couple more sections to show. We can move to our next page. I want to make sure I leave Jessica a little time. So we've got 2 pages of details here that show walls and screens, stairs, windows in wood, windows in plaster, where we have the 2 varying conditions. And I think if we go to the next page, that'll be for Jessica Harlan.
Hello. So the site plan is very similar to what we presented last time and got positive feedback on, with just some slight tweaks to the layout. Coming in the street, we have, towards the front door, we have some concrete pavers that come through the sliding walls that kind of work with the streetscape, and then go across the reflecting pond on floating steps to the main entry. This is our current lighting plan. It mainly has path lights for safe path of travel at night along main patio and walkway spaces, as well as some wall lights facing inward to the property to give some ambiance. All are hooded, which if you just go to the bottom right of the sheet, you can see the actual fixtures, and they are shielded, downward facing, modern aesthetic to go with the modern property. You can go to the next sheet. Our irrigation plan is very, very simple. It is a drip irrigation plan connecting to a new point of connection for an irrigation submeter. We have all drip irrigation except the small lawn area, which is an MP rotary spray nozzle. And that is just for the lawn area. Next page, please. You don't need to see the details. Next page, please. Okay, so the main landscape plan along the street frontage, as I noted before, we have these sliding concrete walls that in front of the walls on the street side, we have ornamental grasses and succulents with a street tree of Acacia stenophila, which is a shoestring acacia, to create a nice, clean, simple, beachy landscape. If you go to the elevation below, you can get a feeling for the level of screening that the walls in combination with the trees provide of the structure from the street. Our goal is to have the 6-foot wall and then a canopy that starts at 6 feet so that we really get good privacy for neighbors and our client. You can go back to the plan. Our plant palette has stayed the same. We have a mix of kind of modern Zen plantings, acacia, cousin it, a grevillea, I think it's pittosporum golf ball, to just create textural plant materials and shades of greens on that interior of the courtyard. We do have, coming down into this water feature under the covered patio or by the covered patio in the backyard, where there's a rain chain that's going to come down to a concrete trough or runnel feature that then goes into a dry creek bed, which is an infiltration basin. It's going to have Mexican River rock with an open base. So it creates our kind of stormwater detention and a recharge area. Along the perimeter of the property, we have this a new proposed 14-foot hedge for the privacy of neighbors, and that is replacing existing hedging and unifying the site. Jake mentioned that we are removing one Metro Sideros and replacing it for another one along the street frontage. That's it. The palette stayed exactly the same. There's just been a couple little tweaks regarding the site and the hedging and walls. Please let me know if you have any comments. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Jessica. We're here for project design approval, so that's not final design,
Mr.
right?
Chair?
Yeah.
We need to open up public comment for this item prior to moving on to questions.
Sorry. Yeah. Anyone in the public wants to have any questions? Yes.
So since the applicant presentation is concluded, we can open it up to public comment. If anybody in the audience would like to make verbal public comment about this item, please do so by raising your hand. Click the GoToWebinar control panel, raise your hand icon, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak once you're called on. I do not see anybody who wishes to speak on this item, so we can go ahead and move to questions from the board.
Thank you. I apologize.
In addition, I apologize, Mr. Chair, sorry. I'm getting a little out of order. We also did not receive any written public correspondence for this item. Now we can move on to questions from the board.
Thank you. This is the thing about technology. Everything's kind of interesting. Okay, so I'm bringing it back to the board for questions. So I'm going to go down the list, read your name and see if you have any questions. So Board Member Farrell, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, do you have any questions?
I have no questions at this time.
Thank you. Okay. Board Member Richards, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Sweeney, questions?
Just one to Mr. Hamilton. You mentioned at the beginning of this item that we're to pay attention to the hedge issue, and there was a second thing you wanted us to pay attention to.
Yes, Mr. Sweeney, there's a hedge at the western side of the property, and I believe also the northern side that is over height, and that is what the admin exception is for. So comment on that, and also the site wall that is along Carlton Way that is pictured in this drawing.
That is all the 6 foot high site walls, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's it. I have no other questions.
Thank you. Board Member Ziegler, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I have no questions at this time either, so I'll bring it back to the board for comments. Board Member Farrell, do you have comments?
No, it looks the same as when we saw it last time, and I was supportive of it then, and I'm still supportive of it now.
All right. Thank you very much. Board Member Motisha, any comments?
No, I do not have any comments. Thank you. I will support it. I do like the few changes they've made, and I was supported it before when we looked at it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Board Member Richards, any comments?
I agree with the previous comments. I support the project, and I review the landscape plans. It all looks great. So move
All right.
forward.
Thank you very much. Board Member Sweeney, comments, please?
Actually, it's a question I forgot. Maybe the applicant can answer. How close are you to getting a complete set of drawings?
We've got a lot of consultants. We're working with structural and civil right now. That's in process. We're working with our solar consultant. I may have forgotten to mention, but tentatively we have solar panels only on the locations where there's small parapets. So we're trying our best to minimize the view of those. Our landscape plans and our architectural plans are further along, but in terms of construction documents, we still have a team of consultants to bring along as well.
And you have a tier 3, tier 2, what are you?
We have a tier 2. We're less than 4,000 square feet in a non-hillside zone.
Thank you. That was my question. My comments are that I believe that we should be able to give this project design approval today, that has met all of our concerns over the previous reviews, that the issue of the 12-foot hedge is perfectly acceptable given the circumstances of this property and the comments we heard from the neighbors, as well as the 6-foot walls in front as proposed on this plan and on the elevations. Just anecdotal, we've looked at now 2 major design processes on this house. Historically, there was another application with another completely different design. I think in the end, this is the better of the 2. So I think the applicant is there, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Ziegler, do you have any comments?
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question, sorry, to go back to this is always a concern with flat roofs, and I know you told me this before, but the material of the roof and the color of it, Mr. Nixo?
Sorry, I have to unmute myself. The material is a single ply membrane roofing. Not like a hot mop, but rather the kind of IB roof systems, the single ply plastic membrane. It will likely be something in I don't have the specific color, but it will be a lighter color for reflection. Likely to not be a bright white, but kind of a lighter gray, something in that range.
Okay, thank you. I do have concerns about flat roofs and the reflectivity, but this has already been approved for design, so I'm not gonna, belabor that subject. So that being said,
Brian, may I say something else?
Sure. Yes.
We've got a 3 foot, 4 foot, 3 foot, 6 foot high wall all the way around the whole house.
Okay.
Basically, is that neighborhood compatibility?
Joe?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, if you look at Jessica or someone had the elevation, could you bring that back up from this plan? Because it's not a 6 foot high all the way around the house. There it is. It's only 6 feet high.
Oh, I understand that. Only on this.
Only on a portion of the south elevation. The rest of it is 42 inches high. Is that correct?
Correct. Correct. I understand that. I'm just.
Okay.
I'm just bringing up the subject of a new neighborhood compatibility of a even no matter how high it is, no matter the fact that the property in the house is confined in a wall, which is not, and I take that back. I don't whether know if it is not or if it is, but the neighborhood is basically Santa Barbara neighborhoods are open. They are not confined behind foot high or 6 foot high walls. And this is especially important.
It depends on the neighborhood, Joe. And if you go around this neighborhood, there are some walls we've approved like this. The purpose of these walls came about to address directly the neighbors that came to this board that lived immediately across the street requesting a wall. So that's where it came from.
I know walls got there. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Batista. All right, any more comments? Any comments or questions? With that, I move to entertain a motion. They are requesting project design approval. Would someone like to entertain a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and move a motion for project design approval.
Thank you, Mr. Swing.
That the board has indicated by this meeting and the previous meeting that the general appearance is consistent with the neighborhood compatibility in terms of its size, bulk, and scale. That the board did address the height of the building and did take into consideration the roof, the proposed flat roof in particular. The board would request when they return for final that they bring the sample of the roofing material, the single ply roofing material in a light gray color. And that if they're going to install solar panels, that the framing for the solar panels be dark black, which I believe will match the color of the surface of the actual panels. That the quality of architecture and material are consistent with other contemporary homes that we have located and seen within the neighborhood and within a few blocks of this house on Mohawk and Carlton. That there were some trees that were proposed to be removed. However, they have been reviewed by the Parks and Rec and the Public Works Department, and the applicant is replacing trees as required by those reviews. That the project addresses the general health, safety, and welfare of the community. That good neighbor guidelines have been addressed, particularly with regards to the placement of the 6 foot walls on Carlton Way as a direct response to concerns from noise of the property to the neighbors directly to the south, and that the hedge at 12 feet on the west and northerly property lines are acceptable to exceed the 8 foot as defined by the hedge ordinance within the city of Santa Barbara, and that the board recognizes that is an agreement between the adjoining neighbors to protect privacy and address sound. The project does not impede any major public views, given its location.
Thank you. Do you want to go before the consent or full board?
Oh, yes, excuse me, and should return for final at consent calendar, please.
Thank you. Do I have a second, please?
I'd like to second that, please.
Great. May I have a roll call?
Yes, thank you. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you.
And there is a 10-day appeal period, right? Ed?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is correct. There's a 10-day appeal period.
All right, thank you very much. Let's see, it is now 4:30. So we're a little ahead of schedule. Should we take a little break or what should we do?
All right.
We have to take a break.
Well,
Mr. Chair, we are
for 15 minutes before the item, so it's up to you, Mr. Chair.
Fine. It's 4:50 is the.
Right.
Yeah. And I have 4:30, so.
Minutes.
So let's take a 5-minute break and come back at 4:35.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, so we have Chair Miller,
Here.
Board Member Farrell,
Here.
Board Member Motisha,
Here.
Board Member Richards,
Here.
Board Member Sweeney,
Here.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Here.
All right, we have everybody. Thank you.
Great. So the next item, item 3, is 1789 Calle Poniente. Let me read into the record. This is a project, it's a continued item. Proposal to construct a new 1,847 square foot, 2-story single unit residence with an attached 426 square foot garage and 143 square foot basement. Project includes removal of several trees and new landscaping. A new wood deck, flagstone patio, and covered porch are also proposed. The proposed total of 2,416 square feet of development on a 9,534 square foot lot in the Hillside Design District is 67% of the maximum allowable floor to lot ratio area ratio. The project requires neighborhood preservation and hillside design and slope lot findings. Project was last reviewed on March 2nd, 2020. So I have a question, Ted. Is this here for just comments only, or can we move for project design approval, or what's the status of this?
Mr. Miller, Chair Miller, this project is here for project design approval today.
Okay, thank you. So do we have a representative for this project?
Mr. Miller, I believe we have Tom Gillis, the owner.
Hold on, Jan, you have a question, comment? Sorry, hold on.
Before the applicant comes to present, can Ted please read into the record what our comments were from our March 2nd meeting?
Thank you. Very good.
Yes, Ms. Farrell, I will do so. The comments from the previous meeting, March 2nd, 2020, 17 in total. 1, the project will be ready for project design approval at the next meeting. 2, the proposed plans have provided a dramatic change in the design approach. 3, the change in the location and size of the project is appreciated. 4, the board recognizes that the applicant has provided a plan that locates any exterior decks outside the 15-foot guideline from the property lines. 5, applicant has revised the plan limiting the number of staircases from the decks to just one of the proposed entry that provides access from the driveway off Calle Poniente. 6, the board appreciates and understands the profile sections for the site provided on sheet 2 in relation to how this property and proposed massing sits in regards to adjacent properties. 7, the board is supportive of the wooden style architecture that may be perceived as bungalow or craftsman. 8, there are numerous wooden structures on both sides of this street all the way down to Valerio Street. Some are board and batten, some are a combination, and some are stucco. The proposed material, because it is a hardy board type material, will meet fire department code for this area. The roof material will also meet fire department code for this area. 9, window proportions and scaling on the 1st and 2nd floor is situated on the site address SFDB guidelines about following the contours of the site. 10, the west and south window locations tuck into the site appropriately. 11, floor to floor heights are appropriate as indicated on sheet 6. 12, provide dimensions for floor to floor heights on the drawings. 13, provide a more complete conceptual landscape plan as indicated on sheet L1. I might have gone a little out of order there. 14, show the proposed planting underneath the oak site on the plans and indicate how the proposed planting will survive long term. 15, the board understands that the indicated boulders and rocks will be from the existing site and will not be imported. 16, the applicant shall provide a preliminary tier 3 stormwater management plan. And 17, clarify the amount of grading on the site so that the board can understand if there is any import or export on the site as the project moves forward.
Wow, thank you. Do we have a representative for this project here?
Mr. Miller, I believe we have Tom Gillis.
Okay.
He is in panelist mode now. I'm going to send Mr. Gillis an unmute request and a webcam request as well. Okay, and I see Tom Gillis popping up here.
It's Don Swan.
Hi, Mr. Swan. Hi, Mr. Gillis. If you could please orient the camera, if possible, so that your faces are front lit, because right now it looks very
the
just
back
shadows currently.
Can you cover that window in the back?
That's a little better right there, yeah. But if you got shades or something for the window, that would be even better.
Wait a minute, hang on. We'll move.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, musical chairs.
You don't need to see.
That's much better, thank you.
I'm Don Swan, by the way.
I'm Tom Gillis. Hello.
Are we on?
Yes,
Hello?
you're on.
Okay.
You have the floor.
Okay. As you can see, mostly the comments from the previous meeting were commentaries from the board. There's a couple of things I need to relate to. One is one item we changed. If you do you have you're looking at the plans, correct? One time we had an issue with having access to the deck from the kitchen, and so we have added a walking deck in front of the living room that runs across the south portion of the house. It is unfortunately 14 feet from the property line, and it is so that it's strictly for walking, getting to the deck, carrying things from the kitchen to the deck for barbecue, etc. So that's the reason we added that. We have a condition where Mr. Gillis has acquired a 9-foot landscaping easement on the south side adjacent to 1785, showing that we have an extra 9 foot of space there. Plus, I believe there's another 20 odd feet before the house comes into play, and the patio, of course, of the house next door at 1785 is on the other side of that house. So we're plenty distance away from any confrontation with decks versus the neighbors. So that was the only change that we made from the other house, except for we've run into a problem with the planning where we made some interpretations were made of the open yard area and setbacks from it. It has been declared by the planning that the 40-foot wide easement that is called a private road, and therefore we must set back our open yard area 10 feet minimum from the secondary front yard, which is classified, and it's on like 3/4 of the site. The front yard. So your plan shows that modification, except where on the south side there was a part of the open yard clear up to the driveway easement for 1793, and then Thursday we found out that they still classify that as part of the private road, so we must have set back farther than that. And we have modified that again, which your plan does not show. And I'll show you this is what is kind of like I can't quite see it, but this is what it looks like. Looks like how much space we had left over for everything, and how I had to set back the open yard area. And so I sent that to Ted Friday, and he said he got it, but unfortunately it would not reach your hands in the meantime. So, but we resolved it and got the setback, and don't have to have a modification for the open yard area because of that. In doing that, it did change a couple of things
because of the open yard, I had to revise the front steps to the front porch, which had to modify where the steps would come into the porch because of the front. So originally they were on the front, but now by this sketch, it shows them off the end of the deck towards the master bedroom wing. So the land and that grade is within 2 feet of the porch. So it's just a matter of 3 or 4 steps down to that part, and then we create a stairway going down to match our walkway to the street. And the only other modification or change that I made was that the deck area below there's a bedroom below the deck in the front southern portion of the property, and I had to move it a foot more farther to get more space for my open yard. Other than that, everything is pretty much the same as we had it originally submitted several months ago. I guess that's as much as I need to tell you. If you can, if there are any questions?
Mr. Swan, if that concludes your presentation, then we can open the item up for public comment.
Yes.
And then we can move on to questions from the board.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Chair, we did not receive any written items of public comment for this project. And now we can open it up to any members of the public who would like to speak. If you are attending this meeting and you would like to give verbal public comment, please click the raise your hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel, and you will have 2 minutes to speak once staff calls on you. Currently, I do not see anybody with the hand raised, so I believe we can just move on to questions from the board.
All right, thank you, Ted, I appreciate that. So I'll just go down the list. Board Member Farrell, do you have any questions?
I do. Timmy, I was wondering if it would be possible to go through and we could just look at the site plan again, just to refresh our memory. We haven't seen this house since March, and I'd like to look at, and the, all the plans. Yeah. Thank you. Which plan shows the new location of the steps? Which page? The new front steps.
You don't have that information.
Oh, okay.
They show you.
Ted has it, didn't he? Was Ted
Can
have it?
you see this?
Part of my interruption, I would just ask if you could turn your webcam on. I've sent you a webcam request, Mr.
Okay.
Swan, and you should just be able to click share my webcam.
And just to clarify Mr. Swan's point, those plans with the revised front steps were sent after the agenda was posted. So staff wasn't able to upload the revised plans to be shown for this hearing. However, the set that you're reviewing right now was reviewed for application completeness and is complete and meets zoning.
Okay, thank you, Ted.
Did you want to see the, okay, there you go.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to see. Thank you. Okay, now I remember it.
And Mr. Swan and Mr. Gillis, I would, you just had your webcam on, but I think you turned it off again. I've sent you another webcam request.
Hello?
If you could turn it back on.
Can you hear us now?
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, can you hold up your plan so I can see in comparison where your new steps, the front steps are going to be?
So
At
where's
the
the,
end of the deck.
it's hard to, when you, everything's on cam, I can't figure out.
Oh, I think, so are the steps gonna come directly up instead of coming from the side?
Yes, yes, but it's down 2 feet from there.
Which elevation are you referring to? West?
North?
You want to see, look at the front elevation?
Is that the north elevation, Don?
I got it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's it right here.
Yeah, see
where the arrow says Santa Barbara stone veneer?
Uh-huh.
See the
It's gonna
stairs?
come off the end of that deck. You'll be pointing west when you step off the deck.
You notice the stairs are now here. They're gonna be over there now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying, Don. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thanks, Timmy. I just wanted to see those. I appreciate that. Thank you. No more questions for me.
Thank you. Mr. Motisha, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
All right. Mr. Richards, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney, any questions? Where'd he go?
Mr. Sweeney, it looks like you're self-muted and so we can't hear you. And I've just sent you another webcam request. There we go. Now we can hear you.
I had it off just to give everybody bandwidth. You can keep it on sheet 5. Question, I just want to look at this revised east elevation. Amy, if we could focus on that, please.
Is that the one with the porch?
Yeah, so the extension you changed is that area that's going in front of the sliding glass doors, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then while I'm there, the chimney cap that you're proposing up on the chimney, is that a specially designed cap or is that an off-the-shelf purchase? We know.
I think they're off the shelf because mine was like that and it was off the shelf. Yeah.
Okay, and then if you could go to the site plan again. I just want to be clear on the easement or whatever happened there on the. Yeah. So on the easterly side, I guess. So did I hear correctly? There is a property line. You see the PL, and then it appears some other area below that. Are you saying that's an easement that he's worked out with the southerly neighbor or the easterly neighbor?
It was a landscape easement, yes.
Okay, so that's in agreement with the southerly property owner.
Correct.
And who maintains that? He does, or they both do?
He does. Gillis does. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then I'm not. Yeah, I guess I'm not as concerned about the yard area, so I don't really have a question there. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ziegler, do you have any questions?
I don't think I have any. Thank you.
I have no questions myself, so I'll return it to the board for comments. So I will just go down the list. Board Member Farrell, do you have any comments, please?
No, just I think it's a really nice house. I think it fits well in this neighborhood, and I'm supportive of it.
Thank you. Board Member Motisha, any comments?
No, I do not. I like the project and it reminds me of Oak Park. Very nice. Fits in our area real nice.
Thank you. Mr. Richards, do you have any comments?
I agree with it's a good project. Happy how it's kind of progressed over time and I support it. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sweeney, any comments?
I think it addresses all of our concerns that we've addressed before this meeting. If whoever makes the motion, I would be supportive of the easterly deck as shown on whatever the sheet is that we're looking at. that's less than 15 feet to our guidelines, but given the circumstances of the landscape easement, I think that's appropriate. The only other comment I have, word of caution to the owner, given the amount of public input and concern we've had about this project since the beginning, I would encourage you, if you're having to make site changes or changes to the design as this thing gets under construction, I'm assuming at this point that we're going to move in that direction, that you be very careful about alerting the city, Mr. Hamilton or others about changes rather than relying on the inspector's approval of changes. Given the interest of the neighbors, I can share with you that we've had similar projects where the applicant and the inspector have made a deal about making changes on the site. Then we find out about them later on, and then there's a whole issue of trying to ask for forgiveness after you've made the changes and after you thought you had approval from the city, but it was really only the word of the inspector. So I'm just cautioning you, given the interest of the neighborhood and the several public commenters that we've had previous to this, I would urge you to look at that very carefully. And I suspect you will run into issues as you start building this thing. There'll be tree limbs in the way. There'll be stuff you find in the ground that you didn't expect. And so I suspect, just like you found it last week about the staircase and having to change this and that, just be really careful as you go through this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ziegler, any comments?
No comments, pretty typical.
Thank you. I actually do have a question. I'm sorry. I was looking through the minutes, and item number 3 said reconsider the placement and configuration of the pool equipment. Was that addressed? Okay, I'm looking at the wrong project, so never mind. Forget that.
Mr. Chair, can we hold it right there?
Yeah.
Mr. Swan, did you address, let's see, item 12, 13, 14, 15, 16? Where are you on those? 17, yeah.
Okay. You need to push something.
I had to do this. See, I knew it.
Can he hear you? Ask him.
So, Mr. Swan and Mr. Gillis, your microphone is live, but we don't have your webcam on. I've sent you a request if you wish to share your webcam, and then we'll be able to see you and you can respond. Thank you. We can go ahead and hear you.
I'm sorry. What was that question again?
Down at the end of our comments, the last time we had some issues we wanted you to address. I think I saw floor-to-floor heights as indicated on sheet 6, and you did provide dimensions on the heights, I believe.
Yes.
But we had a comment 13, provide a more complete conceptual landscape plan as indicated on sheet L1. Did you refine that or give us some additional information?
Yeah, it's been revised in the irrigation plan as well. I believe is a part of the project.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
There we go. There's L1.
There we go. Okay. Okay. And then going back to that list, there were a couple other things that we asked you to address. You may not have done that yet, but let's see.
Tier 3.
The planting under the oak trees you showed on that site, and maybe Robert, you might want to take a second look at that. We can go back to that plan in a minute. And then Storm 3 water management plan, has that been completed yet, or are you still working on that?
So it's been submitted, and I have some comments from Jim Rumbling right now, and we're just going through the details of it. So it's,
okay, so that's not complete yet. And then what was the last comment I think we had? If we can go back. Grading. I think the concern was were you taking any large amount of soil off this site?
The only soil we're taking out is underneath the house, and it's 110 yards of being exported.
Okay, 110 yards?
Yes.
But that's mostly under the house?
All under the house.
Okay, yeah, under the rules, that, as I understand, that's not counted as grading, but thank you. All right. And I know, Robert, you may want to just look at what's under the oak trees. That would answer the question you asked last time.
Yeah, I reviewed the plant list for the oak trees and it's all good.
Okay.
Don, did you have something to say?
No, I was just, no, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I apologize. I was looking at them. Anyway, so with that being said, they're here for project design approval. If someone would like to entertain a motion for that, if you feel that that is it's appropriate at this time.
I'd like to give this project design approval, and I can make a motion.
Okay.
So, okay. I think that this project can go back to consent for final approval. This project is, it meets all of our guidelines in that the natural topography is not being altered, except for, I know there is going to be some grading for the basement and the footings of the home. Other than that, it's fine. And the building scale and size is compatible with the neighborhood. This project uses quality architecture and materials, which is consistent with the neighborhood. And it enhances this little street here. Size, bulk, and scale is appropriate for the site and the neighborhood. The landscape plan is nice. I know that there are trees to be removed, but it's not going to impact, I do not feel that the removal of the trees for the building site will impact the neighborhood, and the landscape plan to me seems to be acceptable. Health, safety, and welfare have been preserved in this project. Good neighbor guidelines have been followed in that regarding the privacy and landscaping. Public views, there are no public views being obscured by the building of this house. And that's my motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
May I have roll call?
Yes, thank you. We have Chair Miller,
Yes.
Board Member Farrell,
Yes.
Board Member Motisha,
Yes.
Board Member Richards,
Yes.
Board Member Sweeney,
Yes.
and Board Member Ziegler.
Yes.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And there's a 10-day appeal period for this. Should I read this? This went up. Should I read this or what? Is there a protocol or not?
Mr. Sweeney, I'm sorry, Chair Miller, there is no protocol. It's not necessary to read the appeal process slide.
Okay.
The information is up on the screen.
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, I have a question for Mr. Hamilton. Ted, on when we make these motions, there's an item 5 that talks about the health, safety, and welfare. When we make these motions, I'm a little concerned about those of us who have architectural licenses agreeing to that clause, because we don't have the opportunity to review these drawings in detail, nor do we have the opportunity to do or review the plan check process, which has to do with health and safety. That's what is required. Could you find out if legal counsel or whomever on the staff side has reviewed that for liability issues? Because I'm concerned, Joe and I are licensed architects, and by agreeing to these motions, we're in effect saying we as licensed architects are assured that these drawings meet all the health and safety of the building code. And we don't have the ability to review these drawings in any detail. Joe, do you agree? Is that a concern?
Yes, I agree. We have not looked at these drawings in detail, so we don't really know. We are just, yes, I agree with you.
Well, you also.
And we're not giving, when we give these things final approval, we're giving it based on our understanding of the concept review approval and the details that are attached. But when somebody says we give these final approval, that's something that we have I don't think we have authority to do. That's what the building department is for. So I think it's somewhere along this phase, if in fact the city wants to retain the single family design board, it's a moot point if they don't, but if they do, then I would say that's a concern for that language to be in these motions. I don't believe we used to do that, but maybe I'm incorrect. But it's a concern, Ted, if you could put that on your list of things to do, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney, just to respond to that, the board's purview is design approval, not necessarily compliance with building code. And in addition to that, if you would like to email the city attorney's office directly about this issue, you are welcome to. Dave Ostringer has indicated that it's perfectly acceptable for board members to contact her directly about legal questions.
Okay, and I have done that and I get no responses. I made a call into her office a week and a half ago and I never got a response. In fact, 2 weeks ago now. So I'm not real optimistic that if I do that, I'll get a response. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney, Chair Miller, that comment is acknowledged. Staff will reach out to city attorney's office. At my level, I do not have any guidance on that.
If you want me to follow up on it, I'd be happy to. So if you think you want me to follow up, I could, if that makes a difference. So.
Chair Miller, that would be great, yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Sweeney, I will find out. And also, it also pertains to Mr. Richards, as he's a licensed architect, landscape architect. So I'm thinking it might even pertain to you.
Yeah, I think we all generally understand what our purview is, but that's not what you read in the minutes. When the minutes get filed, particularly if they travel to the city council, that's not what it says. It says final approval of the drawings. It doesn't say final approval of the design drawings. It says final approval of the drawings. So maybe it's a wording issue that has to get resolved. But again, the legal counsel can answer that question.
All right. So noted. With that being said, it is now 5:11. I'd like to conclude the August 31st Single Family Design Board. Thank you very much for all your time.
Thank you.